Hello, and welcome to the Week One Recap of the Pokespot Draft Cup. I am Elliott, as you may know. One take Jake, because I'm better known. So here we go. We have the results. We have a win for Carl's Manila Monetrix over me. Pretty one-sided, honestly. Maurice Marley, however you like to say it. Just got a 6-0 win over Rudy, but 6-0 is kind of flattering. I'll show you why in a little bit. Dan takes the win over Jake. Redmer will lose to Steve in a pretty close fought battle. Alexi destroys Chauncey. He finds a way to get past that stall. Earl with a very close win over Victor. That and Lewis versus Whitney were both very, very close. And Fabian will take the win over Onkar. So my top team, my second team, they both took a win. I think Jake was my third team. He took a loss. And the team I put fourth was Redmer, who also took a loss. We'll get into the battles now. So the first one on that list was me versus Carl. So we'll get into that. But it was pretty one-sided. There isn't too much to talk about. I realised from team preview I had completely neglected to think of an answer for Metagross. I don't have a Metagross answer. So he led that off pretty quickly. It chunked the shit out of Gumshoes. It chunked something else as well. And basically, I mean, Carl's team was scary to me. And it proved that way as well. Mega Gyarados running Ironhead as well, which is pretty nice tech for Clefable. I was running Unaware Clefable because I thought, don't want to lose to Dragon Dance, to the dual Dragon Dancers. Seems pretty solid. Completely neglected the fact that Mega Gyarados has Mold Breaker. Ironhead straight through my Unaware. It claimed another kill as well. I think eventually I managed to stop it with Mega B. But the Torment didn't end there. He had Tailwind, Acrobatics, Tornadus. Which completely negates Beedrill and its ridiculous Speed Tier. It was also able. I used Cryogonal as my way to deal with Tornadus, thinking he would run a special set. He did not. So he was able to 2-hit KO that with Acrobatics, and with Clefable out the way, it was very difficult to stop that. Only Zygarde and Tornadus ended up going down. I think Zygarde died to a Hooper in the end. He bought Bracephalon, but thankfully it didn't even come out, so I didn't have the ignominy of losing to it. So yeah, it was a pretty one-sided battle, all things considered. Carl out-prepped me. He out-battled me. Not too much more to say. I say he out-prepped me. He had to look up what Gumshoes was at the start of the battle. So, there's that. Maurice versus Rudy. Now, from team preview, you already know that Victini, possibly Entei, not so much Entei actually with Suicune there, and Aerodactyl are threats. What I didn't expect was what Ditto did. So it was a Golisopod versus Tangela League. Golisopod obviously going for the first impression. They ended up first impressioning Ditto, I believe. Or was it the turn after? Either way, Ditto comes out. And as Golisopod goes for spikes, Ditto starts setting up spikes as well. And then later on, I think with Shuckle they got the webs up. Rudy got the webs up, and Ditto comes out, copies a Starmie, and spins everything away. Oh, it was beautiful. Ditto being the one-man hazard control was not what I expected from this team. Maurice is very good at subverting expectations. Here I've just highlighted turn 6 because this did make me laugh. Shuckle came back, withdrew Shuckle to bring in Golisopod. Golisopod took damage from the spikes and had to leave. Shuckle came back in and then got put straight to sleep. I just found that amusing. The reason I say this was a little unfortunate to be a 6-0 was Suicune was quite obviously the way to deal with an Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl was Hone Claws, Rockium Z. Suicune came out to deal with it and took a +1 Continental Crush, but it was a crit. And here I have the calc to prove that a +1, even Adamant Aerodactyl, assuming full Fizz Def Suicune, which I assume it would have been, seeming as it was his answer, to Aerodactyl, I think even with a little bit less defense, it's still about It's still less than 100, but he got the crit and it immediately knocked it out, which yeah, well, I mean, is a huge issue because after that, I mean, what this doesn't stop Aerodactyl, this doesn't stop Aerodactyl, this definitely doesn't stop Aerodactyl, this probably doesn't stop at +1 after it had been chipped, and then Altaria. Altaria was the second plan, I think. Got a Dragon Dance up, and then Rudy realised he'd EV'd it wrong. It didn't outspeed, so that became an issue. So I do think Rudy was very unlucky to lose 6-0, and I think it actually would have been a pretty decently close game had Suicune been able to stop that error early on, because it obviously does have recovery. So it could have kept checking that Aerodactyl, but it was a little bit shaky. There was another important turn in this game, and Altaria got to +1, and Raw Entei came out. Now, I did not expect Raw on Entei. That is Raw, R-O-A-R, not R-A-W. He did go Raw Entei, but, you know, that means something completely different. But yeah, it ended up being a 6-0, but I think probably slightly unfair 6-0. But yeah, Aerodactyl claimed a lot of kills. And you could tell from team preview it was probably going to be an issue. Suicune was the answer, and an unfortunate crit. Stopped it being so. Dan versus Jake, again, not too much to say in this game. It ended up going quite one-sided. Turn 2, Jake lost his Scolipede. It took a flamethrower from Nidoking, and then it was finished off with Ice Beam. He got one spike up, and got some damage, and did 97% with Earthquake to the Nidoking, but Scolipede looks like a good answer in this game because there's a Latios, because there's a Zeraora. Speed Boost Protect, very useful set. Obviously the spike is really nice. Everything on this team other than Latios is it hit for 12 by the spike every time it comes in. It really helps dealing with Pyukumuku. He's a disgusting, disgusting Pokemon. I spoke with Jake beforehand about this game. I thought he was going to bring Gracium Manaphy. It ended up being Waterium, which did claim a kill, I think, on Zeraora, I think. But I think Gracium would have been a better way to deal with Pyukumuku. It does about 80%, which with a spike up and a little bit of chip damage is a kill. He ended up electing not to. I think Delmise was how he was going to break through some of this team, and with the grass and the steel stab, which he has from its ability, it could definitely break through this sort of defensive core. It didn't work out that way. With Latios was a Z, Latias was Scarf, I think. And Jake overpredicted twice, bringing Latias in on Latios, thinking, there's a Comfy and a Chauncey. Tried to trick with the Scarf. Didn't work the first time. Goes for it a second time. And held his nerve, Ice Beamed again. Claimed the kill, and at that point, after Steelix died to a Hydro Vortex from Latios, and with Scolipede dying turn 2, Comfy becomes a real threat. It was Draining Kiss Giga Train, which obviously was a threat to Kingler, was a threat to Manaphy, was a threat to Latias, and was a threat to Delmise to some extent, if you could tiff it a little bit. So yeah, Dan ended up winning, Comfy got a couple of kills, but it did a lot of it came down to this overpredict. That probably wasn't necessary, to be honest. I don't think Latios was a huge threat. I don't think it was worth keeping alive too much. But whatever. Redmer versus Steve. Now this was a very hard fought battle. I enjoyed watching this one a lot. First turn, very confusing setup. Redmer goes for the knockoff on Azelf turn 1. I like that play. You're expecting Damp Rock on the Pelipper, but instead he knocks off an eject button. Now, I don't know what the I think the plan was that it was his answer to Hawlucha, which, if that is the case, I think is a fantastic little tech. Obviously, it doesn't work out because he gets the knockoff, and I actually think Damp Rock would have been really nice in this game because Kingdra just absolutely decimates this offense. Like, Redmer's team scares the shit out of me. I spoke about this a lot. Against Rain offense, he does very little to stop Kingdra. Like, nothing on this team resists like his 2 stabs. Serena's knocked out by a Draco or an Ice Beam. Sharpedo doesn't eat any hit. Coco doesn't eat a Surf. He obviously doesn't eat an Ice Beam. He doesn't eat an Ice Beam. Kingdra's disgusting. Damp Rock plus Kingdra, I think would have just been GG from the off. That said, it didn't matter too much. And then turn 2, Pelipper eats an explosion from Azelf. I think that basically decided the game. Because if Pelipper goes down then, Kingdra becomes useless. Becomes a lot easier to deal with Thunderous. Like basically, Kingdra is the obvious threat, and without the rain, this team is a lot less scary. Even though we do see Thunder on Coco, which seems like a really good idea against the rain, until you realise he has a Thunderous for one, and there's no Damp Rock, so the rain's not even going to be up all that often. He does hit Thunder outside of the rain to kill the Linoon, which was a bit of a threat to his team because it was extreme speed. Like you want that away from Sharpedo, you want that away from Hawlucha. But Coco ends up getting chipped down to about 25%, which became a real issue because, as we have here, Redmer didn't get rid of the Stealth Rocks that were set up by the Uxie. He had an opportunity to remove rocks, but chose to U-turn to keep momentum as well, instead. Which was understandable, but at the same time, with Coco so low, he ended up losing the Coco, and with Coco down, he didn't really have a good way to deal with Scizor. When he got down to 3 Pokemon left, he had Sharpedo, Hawlucha, and Serena. Scizor, like, none of those are beating Scizor. And Kingdra ended up just claiming kills in the rain. He had to sack, Redmer had to sack Noivern, and he had to sack Serena as well. But no, he sacked Hawlucha, I think, as well to Kingdra. And Scizor was just able to win the game. So, I do think this was a good matchup for Steve. Rain is obviously very, very good against offense. If you can keep up this performance with Rain, you'll see why Rain can be such a dangerous draft team. So yeah, I mean, I ended up putting him about mid-tier in my power rankings, but if he keeps going like that, it's a scary, scary team. Alexi versus Chauncey. This was another one that there isn't too much to say. Chauncey went elected against the Sableye lead. Obviously, Mega Sableye is the most common lead for stall-based teams. And with Alexi going Fortress to start, that would have really, it would have been a really nice start because obviously Fortress can't set up spikes, it can't set up Stealth Rock, it can't Rapid Spin on Mega Sableye. So that would have been a nice. He went with Ferrothorn. They exchanged hazards, and then Fortress was able to spin on Bronzong. Chauncey just straight up disrespected Big Sigilyph, bro. You don't disrespect Sigilyph. No, the stall team. You have to really prep for this bastard if you're running a stall team, because Sigilyph will just 6-0 stall. Once Sigilyph got to +3, it was GG, because there's no way this team +3 Cosmic Power, +3 defense and special defense. The obvious answer to that is Weavile, but you have to have pretty big cojones to bring that in immediately on when you don't know the Sigilyph set. But outside of that, I mean, obviously Zapdos has super effective coverage, but Sigilyph is a bulky boy. And Chauncey was disrespecting it. You don't play around with that threat. Sigilyph got to +3, and it was game over. It was Dazzling Gleam stored power, so it was able to get through the Sableye eventually, and the Weavile. Yeah, there isn't too much else to say. It's not an easy matchup for a stall-based team because Sigilyph is such a good anti-Stallmon. But that kind of shows my issues with drafting really defensive-oriented teams as a Pokemon like that. Can be a real issue, but I think Chauncey will work out some of those issues, and no more. You won't have to face Sigilyph again, so just be careful around Reuniclus. Earl versus Victor. This one was a bit of a back and forth one as well. I loved this game. Pre-Marina putting Gastrodon away was good for me. I hate Gastrodon. I don't think it's a Pokemon. When I use it, it dies to every hit. When my opponent has it, it just takes like 30% from like Spec Psychic from a Tapu Lele or some shit. I don't know. That makes sense. Pokemon does not make sense. Not even a Pokemon. It's a Digimon. So yeah, Primarina 2 hit KO and it with Moonblast. I loved that. I really did. And then Cresselia just started taking over. I don't know how this happened, but Flame Orb, Psycho Shift, Carmine Stored Power, I think it was. Oh no, Carmine Psychic, I think. And it just started going to town. It got a burn off on Scizor and Dragonite, I think. It knocked out Swampert, and I think it did some chip down or something else. Eventually, after Cresselia's reign of terror, Earl figured out that it couldn't touch Mega Houndoom. Once he'd seen the full set, he was like, oh shit. And then but what's this? It's Houndoom's music. He came in, he nasty plotted up. It claimed a kill on the Salamence, which, given Victor went straight into it, I thought was going to be Scarf, but it wasn't. So that went straight down. Cofagrigus went down. I think it was then Snorlax forced it out a little bit, but Snorlax got chipped down. And Houndoom came out again, I think, the next time Cresselia came in, killed that. When you look at Victor's team, there wasn't a Scarfer. It was, I think, a Life Orb Infernape, but I can't be sure on that. Infernape ended up not doing too much. It got chipped down as he decided to taunt a Swampert. Swampert obliged by earthquaking him for 60%. It's fair, he did taunt this Swampert turn 1 and stop the rocks going up. And then Swampert was withdrawn, so I think he just assumed there was no earthquake or scald, but you taunt Swampert, that boy's going to hit you hard. Infernape ended up not doing too much after that. I think a Scarf set might have been, or at least a Mach Punch set to try and deal with that Mega Houndoom threat. Obviously, Snorlax was supposed to be the way of dealing with it, and eventually it did. But it came down to a 1v1 between Scizor and Snorlax, and that was as one-sided as Necrophilia. A superpower just straight up knocked out Snorlax. So it came down to the 1v1 at the end, but Mega Houndoom was just such a problem for this team. Two of his main defensive Pokemon are weak to Dark. It could have got through. Oh yeah, no, it was. Houndoom did end up knocking out Infernape as well, the Sludge Bomb. So there was no Scarfer, which made Houndoom's speed tier just godly. And then after a nasty plot, it was hitting super hard as well. Yeah. It ended up being a 1-0 win for Earl, but it could quite easily have gone either way. That Cresselia, I thought, once Cresselia got to like +2 or +3, I thought it was game over, and then obviously Houndoom came out and just started claiming frags. Whitney versus Lewis. Lewis was the guy I put forth in my power rankings. I thought his team was really scary. A lot of that came down to Kyurem Black and Keldeo. No Heatran this week, so an interesting decision, but against an Excadrill T-Tar team. No, sorry, there is no Excadrill. It was Landorus T, wasn't it? Yeah, Landorus T is the thing you'd be scared of. It didn't end up coming. Yeah, shout out to Lewis for calling his Nidoqueen #MeToo. Thought that was very funny. Electros killed the Nidoqueen with an acid spray into, I think, HP Ice. It could have been HP Ground or HP Water. Whatever it was, it killed the Nidoqueen. It was a nice little tech. I think it was an Assault Vest eel as well. And then Slurpuff just came in and just straight disrespected it. Set up a belly drum on it when it was already down to like 76%. Got that Citrus Berry heal. And ended up killing the Electros, which was actually looking like a real problem for this team. It's not particularly easy to break. Jolteon kind of struggles with it. If it's AV, Keldeo doesn't deal with it particularly well. Kyurem would probably have to Z it or something. Like, yeah, it was kind of an annoying Pokemon. I think it was a good one to bring. Mega Banette then comes in with the Shadow Sneak and kills the Slurpuff. And then Lewis thought this was a perfect opportunity to come in and set Substitute on his Kyurem, which it would have been if it wasn't a Will-O-Wisp Mega Banette. Got that Prankster burn, and after that, it became a lot more difficult to deal with this team, I think. I think Kyron Black was going to just win at that point. Behind a substitute, if Mega Burnett couldn't break that substitute and hadn't burnt it, that thing was going to win. It was going to Z through this or this. You can Fusion Bolt through this. You can Tech to beat any of these Pokemon, and it hits so incredibly hard. But that burn just cock blocks so much. I also like to shout the fact that he went for a dry free shock. That's a nice play. I like that. And then despite all that, it did come down to it was Decidueye and Jolteon versus Mudsdale and Espeon. I think Espeon had to revenge the Keldeo, which was scarfed after it killed Titar and I think Celesteela. So it came down to, and then Espeon ended up dying to the Jolteon. So it was down to Mudsdale for the 1 versus 2. Obviously Mudsdale is the GOAT. Ends up earthquaking the Jolteon after getting back to full health with the rest. Interestingly enough, Lewis decided to go with it was like a Brave Bird rest set. Some sort of like defensive Decidueye. I'm not 100% sure what Brave Bird was for. I can't remember what else is on Whitney's team, but I think that's some straight disrespect on the GOAT. Lewis sleeping on it. Not ringing Leaf Blade or something just to hit, these 2 Pokemon here. Probably would have been nice. It ended up costing him because there was no way Decidueye was Brave Birding through the GOAT. Mudsdale claiming that 1 versus 2, and the clutch was his. So yeah, Whitney takes the 1-0 win. Fabian versus Onkar is the final battle we had. I was so disappointed that Fabian didn't bring Trace Paragon 2. Look at that team, and then look at Trace Paragon 2. Aerial 8 Tri-Attack against the Pinsir. It's nice. Magnet Pull to trap the Magnezone. Glorious. Water Absorb on the Jellicent. It's amazing. Trace Paragon 2 was so good in this matchup. It ended up being download. Didn't end up mattering too much. Paragon 2 is absolutely disgusting. How does this team, look at this team, how does it break Amoonguss, Paragon 2, Rotom W? There's no way. Everything that can beat one of these loses to another one. Mega Pinsir smashes through Amoonguss, can probably beat Paragon 2 as well under the right circumstances. It's not easily beating Rotom Wash. Magnezone could probably beat Rotom Wash, but without like a Charge Beam set, it can't beat these 2. Specs Sylveon can Hyper Voice through Rotom Wash. It can Psyshock through this, but it's pretty hard pressed to beat Paragon 2. Yeah, I thought that was a real issue, and this is why Fabian's team is so disgusting. He's got that double regenerator, he's got Paragon 2, he's got Rotom Wash, he's Volt turns, Volt switches the whole time. I mean, like, Rotom Wash is amazing in this game. It walls this to no end. It gets free momentum on this. It walls this and gets free momentum, and it can wall this. And then these 2, both of these 2 are walled generally by a Moongus. So Rotom Wash was amazing in this game. Shout out to what I think is set of the week. Cobra Berry, HP Rock Amoonguss, and here you have this play. Down here, Mega Pinsir comes in, clicks Frustration on the Amoonguss. He thinks, finally, I've got it. I've got Amoonguss. This game's a lot easier. Nope. Amoonguss eats a Frustration on, he was on about 60% health, eats a Frustration with the Cobra Berry, Hidden Power Rock, kills it back, and then goes down to the burn, dying in the flames like all the best heroes. Amazing tech. I think my favourite set of the week. It was a really nice tech. Hyper Beam Sylveon was actually a massive threat. I think it was Specs Hyper Beam. It was a 2-hit KO on Paragon 2, but obviously Paragon 2 is just a ridiculous Pokemon, and it isn't dying to Specs Hyper Beam somehow. It was a really nice idea, but it ended up being a double-edged sword, because you do just give free turns to a team with Charizard X and Terrakion, which you don't want to be doing. But it actually did look pretty damn scary for Fabian. He managed. Onkar managed to get Rotom Wash in the end with Scarf Jump. Scarf Jump did look dangerous in this game, especially as you know it's Charizard X. Like Earthquake can get through that and that. And it did kill Rotom Wash, but at the end he got forced out by, I think it was by the Rotom, who then got free momentum into Charizard X. Charizard X got to +2, started claiming a couple of kills, ended up going down to the Donphan because Donphan was sturdy. Flare Blitz recoil ended up knocking it out. But after that, I think with Donphan and with Scarf Chomp left, Paragon 2 was just too strong in the end, and Ice Beam through the rest of the team. Yeah, Paragon 2 just put in an absolutely inordinate amount of work in this game. Duck is just too damn good. I'd be pretty scared. If you're playing Fabian next week, just bring some damn fighting moves, please. Don't let Paragon 2 do this much work again. It really hurts my soul to see Paragon 2 doing so much work. That will end the recap. I think that was the last game, indeed it was. That will end the recap for this week. I hope you enjoyed it and have fun battling this week. Peace.